evening and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, February 27th, 2019. Could we please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to get our agenda in order. Could I please have a motion to accept the agenda as proposed?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Could I please have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Items that have been pulled from the agenda, the consent agenda, are two donations. Our first item is, let's see what we have up here. Okay. To approve a donation from Bank of America for Blue Mountain Middle School and the Hendrick Hudson School District to increase the budget. The Blue Mountain Middle School received a donation of $64, and the Hendrick Hudson School District received a donation of $80 from the Bank of America employee giving campaign that generates funds for school districts from employees. So I would imagine that's matching donations, and we thank whoever gave those donations. Thank you very much. The second one is a donation from Creating Your Home Incorporated for a high school scholarship. A former student donated $500 to the high school for the creation of a scholarship, and we thank that former student. That's very generous, and I'm sure our students going forward will appreciate that scholarship. So can I please have a motion to accept the donations? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next. I think next is audience comments. If you wish to speak tonight, please make sure you've signed in with all of your contact information. Board of Education welcomes public comments at this portion. Each speaker will be permitted 3 minutes for their comments and must be recognized before they come up to speak. All comments must be directed to the board. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily debate or discuss any items. Operational matters will be directed to school administration for handling. The board is absolutely not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session, so there can never be any discussion of specific identifiable matters. The board will limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others wishing to speak. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
Not that I know of, no.
Thank you. Then next we have Superintendents Report.
Yeah, I want to give a couple quick updates and then turn it over to our team to give some updates on their end. But a lot of good news, so I'll try to be brief but detailed. A number of students, 4 of our high school students that take place in our biomed program and science research program presented at the annual symposium. One of our students, Thea Barbalet, won first place for her presentation in animal and plant sciences. She was one of over 500 students that participated. Other students included Haley Kistner, Buhak Gwynn, Supaira Baskarin, Karen McCoy, and a couple juniors as well, Paul Williams and James Riley. So that is a really nice accolade to Dr. Rogers and her science research program. She goes with these kids, she mentors them after school, weekends. It's a really great network of kids that she's created with her under her leadership. We had a music student, Asia Iden, who performed at Carnegie Hall. She performed with a honor string orchestra. This took place a couple weekends ago before our break on February 9th and 10th. She performed with a series of other student leaders, but also some professionals and a world premiere composer. It's not often, in fact, it's very infrequent that our students end up at Carnegie Hall, so that was outstanding. Earlier this year, we announced we had 4 semifinalists for the National Merit Scholarship. All 4 of our semifinalists are now finalists. So they are among 15,000 students nationwide. So 4 of the 15,000 students nationwide are from Hen Hud. They are Katie Mahoney, Haley Merchant, Rachel Moon, and Bill Wohlers. So they will continue to go through the selection process, and they'll be considered for a scholarship that will be offered and identified later this spring. Eli Aronson, some of you know the Aronson family. Dela is very, very active, has been very active in PTAs and remains active in our high school PTA. But Eli is the first place champion of all of New York State in the height. So he jumped 6'4". That's as tall as me. So he jumped over me. In case you want to know how high that was, and he will go on to the championships in Staten Island the first weekend. Actually, this weekend, this Saturday.
Oh,
Yep.
his refereeing.
Your husband will be there.
My husband will be there.
Janine Hall. Janine Hall is our biomed teacher in our Project Lead the Way program. Janine Hall has been identified as Project Lead the Way's Teacher of the Year.
Teacher of the Year.
Teacher of the Year, and this is out of over 11,000 programs nationwide. So Project Lead the Way is in 11,000 schools across all 50 states, and she is Teacher of the Year. So that is outstanding. She's going to join us at a future board meeting too.
And hopefully we can honor her.
And we absolutely will honor her. And a save the date, I'll pass these out in case anyone has forgotten. But Hen Hud Live is Saturday the 9th, so we're about 10 days away. Trying to make a last minute push for tickets. It's a great event. It's at a great venue. If you've never been to that whole Factoria complex, it's outstanding. Last year was sort of the rebirth of Hen Hud Live. It was at the Factoria. It was in the middle of a power outage, which was really cool because they were able to wire it up and get it going while many of us did not have power. So we had over 250 folks show up that we thought we were going to have to cancel because we thought no one would show up because no one has power. But if that's the only place there's power, they'll show up. So I'm not wishing for a power outage, but it worked last time. But tickets are available online, and we have flyers everywhere on our website and Facebook, and hope to see people there in 10 days. And with that, I'll turn it over to our team. So we'll start with Margaret and some updates on her end.
So I will be brief since we move along. The most exciting thing that happened in the past few days is every year BOCES sponsors a Young Writers Symposium. It has been mostly directed at high school. They have begun to expand that to middle school, and this year we will be sending 8 middle school kids in the spring to attend. So thank you to the ELA staff at Blue Mountain for coordinating that, but I'm looking forward to that. Then there's a project. You want to talk a little bit about the social emotional piece?
Sure. So we have been collaborating. We have a team of 6 that have been, we're on day 3 of today. It was day 3 at BOCES for our social emotional learning, K to 5. So we're getting the plan together. How do we roll it out? What does it look like? So I think we had a really good day today. We were on a roll, and he interrupted us, but we'll get there. So we have a rollout that we're planning for K-5 staff on May, whatever the date is. It's one of our early release dates. So we have a huge presentation. We're going to do a lot of fun activities. We're actually going to tape a couple of them that we learned today because they were so much fun. And the other one we're looking for is executive functioning. That seems to be a really not just hot topic nowadays. It's something that we're noticing with more and more of our students, and they're classified for the executive functioning. So Margaret and I have been really discussing what does it look like, what does it sound like, and how can we do some interventions prior to kids getting classified, any child. So we have been working with STEAM is what it's called, and they are online. It's an online resource. It's they do PD, and it's all about executive functioning. So we've decided that we really want to target some elementary students, some middle school students, and our 9th grade students to really help them with the organization, time management. How do you not have an exploding backpack, or as the webinar I was on tonight said, exploding purse. Yes. You know, things like that. We as adults still, some of us can't do that. So we've really talked about how we can help kids. So that's going to be an initiative that we both take on next year. And it's something that we think is important for all students, not just students with disabilities.
Absolutely. It was actually, if I can just add quickly to that, this year I've been meeting with the reading teachers and the ENL teachers one-on-one once a month just to review all the kids that are struggling. So I have a sense of where everybody is, and I know whether or not we have the right programs in place or not. This conversation came out of that, because in many, many, many of the conversations, especially in the reading area, the reading teachers were saying to me, it's not so much that they can't read, it's that they're not focused, they don't get their homework organized. So as we kept hearing over and over again, we had sent 2 of our elementary teachers to a workshop at BOCES earlier this year on exec functioning. And, adults have this issue. So, I started to talk to Lisa about this is something I think we need to develop, because I think really it's not intuitive to all people to know how to backwards plan when a report is due, or how to study for a test outside of the packet that the teacher gives you, because that might not work for you. So these are really important life skills for kids, and so I'm very happy. She was right on board, so it's a nice collaboration between Gen Ed and SPED as we move it forward. So
We've already done 9 weeks of training for some teachers that volunteered to sign up.
Yes.
So we did one at Furnace Woods and at BV, and we also did a middle school, high school, where one of the assistant directors, Jean Gizmervik, actually ran one of them.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of turnout, and the
Most
end
heavily
products.
attended in service. We literally had to turn people away because the groups were getting crazy.
And the end
So we'll do it
products and
again.
resources were amazing. So if
Yeah.
we have those, and we shared them with other teachers that were doing it, it was just a positive thing to say, I never really thought about this with kids. And our Gen Ed, it was mostly attended by Gen Ed kids, Gen Ed teachers, excuse me, but they had really come up with some really great strategies for their classes. It was so neat to see, and I've actually seen some of it in action. So it's really a positive thing for us to collaborate and really move forward.
But just as a former teacher, I just know how appreciative everybody is when they're given new resources and some tools that could help them to better be able to deal with students. And a lot of times I think new topics come up, and there's new, this is the new hot talk, and nobody really explains what's behind it. So thank you for teaming up and kind of, working with the staff to be able to have them develop a different bag of tricks that could help kids.
I'm sure we'll have more information as we get
yes,
deeper
we
into
will.
it. Because I think tonight after my webinar, I sent you like 6 emails. How about this one? What about this? So it's exciting to learn, and it's exciting to say, oh, this could have helped this kid, or this could have helped this kid, as we think about kids that we taught.
But we're seeing now the result of really, working well with children when we see our students doing so well and having such positive outcomes, and teachers, like Janine Hall, receiving accolades, and Dr. Rogers. I mean, we're so thankful. So thank you for giving everybody these extra opportunities. It's very appreciated.
Laura?
Sure. I'll talk about what happened when schools closed last week. So when the buildings are closed and students aren't in and teachers aren't in, that's when we can get a lot of technology work done. So 2 days last week, we had tech equipment come in and do a walkthrough with our EduTech staff, because they're working during the times that the students are not in as well. So they went into every single classroom in all 5 school buildings. They are assessing the status of all our smart boards and computers. Met with them again this week, and then Tech is coming back next week. That's the name of the company, to give us an assessment of, again, all our smart boards. In this process, they're going to be giving us a demo of a smart panel that we will be putting into this room for a few weeks. So we'll have it at our next board meeting. It's coming on Friday. So we'll be able to see what some of these smart panels look like. They're basically very large flat screen TVs that work like a smart board. So this is the new wave of the future. So they're lending us one to use for a little while. So that was great. And then at the same time, we had Meteor Education come in last week and they've been working with our district for a while. They've been doing PD at the high school, but they had a team come in for 2 days, also walking through the building, and they were doing an assessment of all our furniture, all of our classroom spaces, tables, chairs, etc. And so we're waiting for that report back from them. They're basically giving us a grade of what we have, lifespan, and things like that. So those were some of the things that from behind the scenes that happened. tech-wise. And then right now we're, as you can see from some of the agendas, we have some teachers that have been retiring, and this is the time for spring posting. So we're just preparing for looking for positions for next year, and just preparing for what that's going to look like. Seems so far away, but already this is the time we're starting to get ready to look for our new
Recruiting
staff.
season.
Yep.
Goes by very fast.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, very much. We're now moving into our presentations and discussions on the presentations. I'm going to switch committee reports, if that's okay with everybody, just because of the time factor. So first, we're going to have, we're going to switch this up a little. Liz is going to do transportation, Liz Gilio.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Liz.
So we'll go through this. So we have some different initiatives here that we continue to work on. Working with athletics to reduce some of the overtime for sports. We're still working on reducing our spending without losing our quality of service for busing. We're going to improve our route efficiency in order to serve the community better. And, sometimes that does look like instead of us having, 16 kids on a bus, we may, have 50 kids on a bus. Okay, but that allows me to reduce the number of buses at that school, and we're still transporting the children, reasonably, and we're having buses that are just a little bit forward. Okay. And we continue to utilize the shared services model. We share services with a number of school districts in order to take care of some of our out-of-district children and get them to school. Okay, this year, all drivers will be certified in EpiPen administration. We also continue to work with them on student management strategies and conflict resolution on the bus. And they also, this year, this was new, we also train them in diabetic and seizure disorder emergencies.
Just very quickly, no. I just want to know, who does this training?
So the medical training was all conducted by Christine Cassidy Cody from BB School. She's our nurse. So she comes over and she does, in February, our training, she does the EpiPen administration, research for all the drivers, and she also did the seizure and the diabetic emergency.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the student management, and that's all done by myself and Christine Reichert. We're both certified school bus driving instructors through state ed.
Good, thank you.
We had Alteris come this February, and they talked to us, the drivers, on how to respond to violence on the school bus, and also how to recognize unsafe situations at the bus stop. Do you go, do you pick up, do you not pick up? And also, we went over with all the drivers, including our night custodians, on what to do if there's a lockout, and how to recognize an emergency in the building, and how to react. Okay, we also this year we started utilizing a web-based driver training program, and that program allows the drivers to, on their downtime, go onto the computer. There's different things. Some of it has to do with actual driving skills, so tail swing. Some of it is student management. Some of it is also helps them with not being complacent. It teaches them about distractibility when driving and how to recognize that in yourself when you're having issues with that. Another one that we did this year that had a big impact on them was a particular story about a student that was hit by a car crossing the street. We all know that that's a very big deal. It's a lot. It's happening more than it should. In New York State, 50,000 school buses a day are passed by motorists who are not stopping for a bus's red lights. So we want to make sure that our drivers know, what to do, and we're training the kids, every day on what they need to do and what the danger signs are and what to do if the driver blows the horn, and to watch the driver before they cross and all those things. And as a result of that and what's going on in New York State, I'm looking at my elementary routes, and if at all possible, I'm going to eliminate any of our elementary kids crossing
I
the
was
street.
just going to ask that.
I'm trying very desperately to do that. It's a very big undertaking. You know, Kathy and I have to look at every route that we have. Right now, I don't allow any elementary students to cross Albany Post Road. And if I can, we won't have any kids crossing any of the streets, but it's a very big undertaking. Or in keeping with not adding buses to the road. If I add buses to the road, it's easier, but we know that that's not an option.
Is there
Yes.
any software or tool that you can use to help with route optimization like that? Or is it something you have to do?
We
by
have
hand?
software that we use.
Okay.
And we use TransFinder. We've used it for years. That's our routing program, and that's what we use. But it's just a matter of, you know, some of it, I actually have to physically go out and drive those routes and, you know, look and see what we can do and how can I get, you know, the buses are a place to turn to come back on the other side so that everybody's getting on door side. So it's a big undertaking, but, you know, Kathy and I are working on that, and, you know,
I think it's so
do the best
important,
we can.
especially for the little kids, you know, because even if you have a parent there, it's still, you know, some of these roads are really wide, and you don't want them crossing, you know, it's just windy. I know.
So that's why when a parent calls, oh, well, why is my son be on the bus for so long? Why, you know, the bus goes right past here. Why does he have to wait and go off the road and come back? Because I don't want them crossing. It's for their safety. Okay, so we also this year received delivery on 2 28-passenger vans. And we also replaced 8 star seats, which are used to transport some of our younger students and some of our special needs students. Okay, and we'll get in now to the budget itself. The first 2 lines, those are just the, you know, contract negotiated increases for CSEA. That's where that 2% is. The next line, which is the chauffeur's handicap line, there's an extra 1.8% in there due to the new program that's going to be starting at the high school. Those students during the day are going to be going to job locations. We're going to have the chauffeurs take them there, so that's where that extra 1.8% comes from. Okay. Field trips stayed the same. We didn't do any increase there. And then sports, it's just the contractual 2% increase. Okay, so our transportation equipment, that's a big decrease in that line. That was the line that we purchased the vans out of last year. So it's a, you know, a decrease of $65,000. There is extra money in there right now for the cameras. Stop arm cameras, the governor has approved for New York State. So I have talked to our provider, and so our buses will all be equipped as long as, you know, the budget goes through and everybody's in agreement. Then we will put cameras on our stop arms of our buses. We can capture the license plate of the car going by. Those numbers are then sent to the police station, whether it be state police, county police, or the Buchanan police.
Good.
And then those drivers are ticketed.
Out of curiosity, is that done real time or does it have to be downloaded when they return?
It'll be downloaded when the bus returns.
Okay.
Yeah, but then it just goes right to, you know, I can send or email it right over to the police station, and then, and the governor also has proposed that the revenues from the fees collected for this would go back to the school district in which it's occurring.
Good.
Great.
So that'll also help to offset the cost of the cameras. My contractual stays the same. Materials and supplies. That's an increase there. That is where I pay for the parts to repair the buses. And we're seeing that we're spending more money, and I'm transferring money into that line. So we increased it by $5,000. Okay. Same thing with lubrication. That money also, you know, I find I'm having to transfer into that line also. So I increased that by $2,000 in the hopes I won't have to, you know, pull money from anywhere else to transfer in. Tires and chains, it stays the same. Our liability, those are just, those are anticipated rates right now. That's what we paid this past year. We don't really anticipate there being a, you know, a big jump, but right now that's what we're anticipating. Okay. So bus garage bus garage equipment, that line's an increase of $28,000. The reason for that is because there's two pieces of equipment they need desperately down there. One is a tire changer and the other one is a balancer. When we get our tires from Horsey Tire or whatever vendor we're using, they come as a tire. Our mechanics have to mount them and then balance them and get them onto the buses. So what they're using, the equipment they're using is very old and it's, very laborious in which to get these tires mounted and everything. So we'd like to purchase a new tire changer and balancer for the buses. Okay, contractual expenditures also, that's things that they use at the garage as far as, rags that the guy comes in, every week and picks those up, and there's some other items that they use on a regular basis that get swapped out. Oils are just a slight increase. My water bill is going to, we hope, stays the same. Electricity, a slight increase also. Same thing with the insurance, the liability for the building, that's also, anticipated. And then materials and supplies, out of there also, it's just a slight increase. So my overall increase for the budget is $39,349 with a 1.1% increase. Okay, so my proposition for this coming year is going to be to purchase two 72-passenger transit-style buses. They're going to replace two buses that are 16 years old. One is at 91,000 miles right now, the other at 93. It's costing me more money to keep those buses on the road, and it just seems that, we're spending too much to keep them on the road, and we're better to just replace them. And we'll just sell them on obsolete bid and get rid of them.
Do the new buses come with seat belts by any chance?
All buses in New York State since 1976 have had seat belts on them. We have seat belts on our buses. We have lap belts on the bus. We don't have three-point restraints. The governor has proposed that he wants to phase it in by 2025, that any buses manufactured after them, that they have the three-point belts. By doing that, it's going to decrease capacity on all the buses. I did look into the possibility of putting three-point restraints on the new buses that we're purchasing. It would be $8,000 more for each bus, and it would reduce the seating capacity.
How much does it reduce the seating capacity?
It reduces the seating capacity by 12 seats, so they would only be 60-passenger buses as opposed to being 72s, which would then require me on many of the bus routes to have to add another bus.
So what various associations are doing is they're saying, we applaud you, Governor, we support this, the research around it is great and fine, but there'll be a cost to a district, and the cost is going to be $8,000 more and less seating, which means more buses, and we are, Liz's organization, I know the Superintendents Group and the Business Officials Group, are going to petition them to say, we're all for safety, but it's going to mean more out of pocket for taxpayers, and what incentives or what sort of state money will there be for us to do this?
Just the concern I have is that, these buses last how long? 10 to 15 years?
I think 16.
16 years.
The other two that were taken out of service are 16 years old.
So if this happens where they are going to do this within the next year, we're now stuck with these two buses that don't have the three-point safety on them. Is that a concern?
They still have a seatbelt, though.
Well, but it's a...
Oh, no, everything is grandfather.
Well,
They won't make
I'm not
us-
thinking about grandfathering. I'm thinking about safety of the kids.
The safety of the kids is it really depends. Like, there's been a lot of discussions. If there's a fire, and then how nervous you get. It can be even worse having them than not having them. So, yes, we all like to have it. The kids don't use it. At the end of the day, you can watch all the videos. I don't think there's 5% of the kids that use it, if all.
But even still, Enrique, there's been some research that the three-point harness is not that safe for the little guys.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's just the way it hits them, it can actually cause more damage.
Actually, if you remember the little kid, when I was starting, that was with the mom that died here, it was because he choked.
They're still researching everything, and that's a real drawback until they can I think, figure out a little bit better. I know you're concerned because you have an older child, but the little guys, you know, it hits them the wrong way, and, yeah.
Something will go right over their face.
No, not only over their face, but it's ended up in an accident, it's choked them, they can't get out of them easily, you know. There's a lot of pros and cons, and that's something that I think we have to consider as well.
Well, we have them in the smaller buses already. don't we?
Not 3-point, we have, all of them have laptops.
All of them, so.
The only ones that have a 3-point are our Suburbans.
For the Suburbans, okay. And do we make the kids not use the seatbelts in the Suburbans, or we have them use?
In the Suburbans?
Yeah.
No,
I'm just thinking if we're saying
in the
that
Suburbans, it's the same law as if in a car. They're required to wear them in the Suburban. They are required to. Because that's what the law is.
Right.
In a school bus, right now, there's no law that says that it's must wear a seatbelt.
But if you have a young child, you'd have a seat designed for a child in the vans, so,
The little,
Same.
you know, you wouldn't necessarily have that on a school
correct, but I
bus.
also can't
Right.
put 66
Right.
star seats in.
And I think that's something, as I said, you know, going forward, we just have to really discuss, and I have to feel 100% sure that that's the best decision.
To make sure the state's making a decision based on safety and not reacting to various.
And that, we know that happens
Yeah.
sometimes, you
Sure.
know, there's pressure groups.
And that's what
So-
the association I belong to, that's what our concern is that he's basing the decision on what happened in New Jersey, and that what happened in New Jersey was a tragedy, yes. But what happened in New Jersey, they didn't have any guidelines regulating their bus drivers that we've had in this state since the Congress crash in 1972, when the train would hit the bus, when the bus went across the tracks and hit the train, and those kids were, you know, killed and injured in that accident. And then that's when 19A was born, and that's when all the regulations for bus drivers came into effect. And so we've lived with that since 1973, right after the accident. So they didn't have that in Jersey. Now, you know, big announcement that Jersey now has, you know, they monitor their drivers, they have to have physicals, they have to have this. Well, we've been doing that.
We've had that in place forever.
Yes. Okay, so I'd also like to purchase two 20-passenger single-wheel vans. Those are replacing vehicles with mileage in excess of 120,000 miles that are currently used every day. Okay, and those are actually, those are vans that are doing that. And those are vans that, you know, they're not that old. They're not 10 years old. But because the vans are traveling such distances, we have vans that are going, you know, over 100 miles a day. The mileage is real high. Okay, so the cost to replace the two vans would be $105,200. And also, we'd like to purchase a vehicle for the security department to use for various events and daily building security detail, as well as these guys travel to away events for security. They go to county center, they go to some of the away football games, they go to basketball games, and that would not exceed $28,000. So the total proposition that we're putting forward is $417,200.
Thoughts, commentary, questions?
Now, does anybody have any questions?
The stop arms on the buses, the hope is to have those in place for this fall then, is that correct? Or would it take longer to do that?
As soon as the budget passes, I just call them and tell them that the budget is passed, and we can do an install over the summer so they're in place for September. That's it. And it's the same company that I use, and it's a high-speed, high-definition camera that's on the outside of the bus. So it's, it'll capture the light.
Capture the image. Great.
Liz, just a quick question about, I just remember when kids getting on different buses to go to their friend's house and stuff like that. She's the face. When I, like, what if a kid gets on, are bus drivers aware of kids? That's a big problem. Is it still a big problem? So I'm allergic to peanuts or something like that, and I get on Jane's bus. Does the bus driver know that?
He's not going to know.
He's not going to know that, right? So it's still...
That's why we try to discourage play dates, but nobody wants to do that, but me. It's a liability, it's a liability, it's, you
But
know,
our buses are peanut free.
they are peanut free.
You know what I'm saying, like a
And we have signs that say they're peanut free, but that
Yeah, I
doesn't
can't
mean
bring peanuts,
everybody
you better get
has to follow those rules.
vaccinated. So it's still, I just remember when my guy was little, it was a problem
Yeah,
then.
the drivers know who their own kids are,
Right.
what their allergies are, that, we give them a, detailed
Right.
sheet as to what the student's allergies are and what to do in case of the allergy.
That's what I know. I mean, like, even if like a kid who might get seizures or a kid who,
Correct.
just
Yeah, that
anything.
is the unknowns. that-
Anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Anthony Mulaney, and he is presenting on Operation Unity. And facilities, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Here to present the facilities operation maintenance budget for 2019-2020. Just go over a couple of utility and some of the things that drive our budget. A couple of different ways, things that have them more larger ticket items. So we get our electric through NIPA. Our overall cost is anticipated to increase along with our solar power purchase agreement and natural gas approximately 2.1% in the coming year. We expend about $203,000 to date on electric for NIPA. Utilities budget for 2019-20 is about $563, and it's broken down $120 for solar, $363 for NIPA, and $80 for Con Edison, which is generally gas. We are pursuing additional cost-saving measures for electrical consumption. We've always tried to do things around here, went through the solar plan, we changed with the energy performance contract we did several years back on T12 and T8s. We're looking at some future lighting, LED retrofits, and also maybe going throughout the whole district and changing the whole district over to LEDs as well. We have a meeting coming up with myself and Enrique over the next couple of weeks with a supplier out there, and it would work kind of like an energy performance contract, where the savings would offset the cost to purchase the bulbs. And they fund the project, they finance it, and then we pay them back out through the savings. So just like an energy performance contract. Some of the solar data for the 5 buildings we're producing solar at the 5, the high school, Frank Lindsay, Blue Mountain, DB and Furnace Woods. The company comes out, they service the solar panels on their own. They have ways of seeing how the panels are performing, how they're doing, if anything's wrong with them, if there's something wrong with the inverter. They get a message back on their end, because it's all computerized. They send a team out here, they address it, and they fix those things right away to get us right back up to peak performance again. Because the more power they produce, the more power we buy. So it only behooves them to have the system running at full efficiency. Solar accounts for about 40% of the district needs. Solar works. We have a good day, nice bright sunny day, produce a lot of solar power. We have an overcast day or gloomy, not producing as much solar, but we hope for those sunny days. We produced about 2,500 megawatts per hour since inception, 2016. So the system became fully up and running 100%. We've been reducing our carbon dioxide footprint, stabilizing our electric bill through the use of solar. Because we have a fixed cost per year and it increases at a set amount that was in our contract with Sun Edison, but now it's Terraform. So that's fixed, we know what that's going to be, so when we do our budgeting, we can know where we're going. Right now, we're paying about 13.8 cents per watt hour, as opposed to about 15.8, which is the average cost that we pay for NIPA. NIPA fluctuates a little bit more. It's been as high as I've seen go from 22 cents, and then it dropped down to a little bit below the 15. So, it goes back and forth depending on what's transpiring, gas costs, et cetera, that they're driving costs for them. And they pass that along to us.
That NIPA rate is really low,
Yes.
15.8,
Yes.
like compared to what everyone else pays.
Oh, yeah.
That is incredibly low, so even before.
Because we're in a consortium with NIPA, so there's a bunch of school districts that buy their power through NIPA, so they can hedge and they can do different things based on their demand, so they can drive that cost down lower for us as well. It's a great consortium for us to be in, and when you state that price, a lot of these people that are like scratch their heads.
And that's for delivery and supply.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Wow, that's great.
Proceeding on, fuel oil, the cost per gallon of oil has decreased since last winter. Last year was approximately $2.25 a gallon this time of year. Right now the average is about $2.05. But we have done some fuel saving measures over the years. Energy performance contracts, logistics, weatherization, changing out doors, making them more energy efficient, running the high school boilers on natural gas instead of oil. And the high school has the ability to run on dual fuel. All the buildings have the ability to run on dual fuel, but they just don't have dual fuel. Like Blue Mountain Furnace Woods, there's no gas that can be supplied to them, even though they bought gas now through there. So Furnace Woods is a potential candidate if we ever wanted to bring gas, but it'd probably be pretty costly to bring gas into the building. So the high school, depending on where gas prices go, if it's spiking, I can turn those boilers over, and I usually keep a full supply of oil in there, and I can throw them on the oil for a couple of weeks while that price spikes until it drops back down again. So we can play around with that a little bit. And then another thing we usually do with oil, depending on the price, costs, whatever, what's transpiring in the market, we see it dip down at the end of the year, we have more money in the oil, we'll top off those tanks, ride through, for the following year, just really hit the ground running. Lower price for fuel. Propane, decreasing cost from last year at this time. The propane runs our pilots for our boilers, and it also does the kitchens for the stoves and the ovens and things like that. So figure that will remain the same in the coming year. Natural gas, Con Edison, gas use is about the same from last year. Pricing is slightly higher than last year, and we think it's going to increase maybe next year. So here are some of the budget numbers. Our instructional salaries, we expect that to increase about $99,000 or a 3.88% increase. The contractual is 2% increase, but myself and Enrique, when we sat down, we were going over the budget. We threw a little bit more money in there for overtime costs because we have been seeing some additional costs that we've been outlaying over the years. So we're just trying to match that better up with our budget. See how that goes. Equipment, we're keeping 2%, it's about $1,600 increase. Contractual service should remain the same. Insurance is a slight increase of $7,200. Maintenance contracts, keeping that the same. Professional services, we anticipate that to jump up because we have our 5-year building condition survey, which every 5 years we have to do it. So we're in line to do that in 1920. So we're figuring about the last time we paid about $70,000, so about $75,000. So that, and that's aidable 100% of our building aid ratio.
And I just want to touch the importance of that plan. It's a 5-year plan. The state mandates that we have on file. It has to be done by a third-party architectural and engineering firm. And that plan, and only that plan, can become the basis for any future capital projects. So a year ago, while we were putting together the final touches on our bond that got approved, we were educating everyone that the only areas of the school facilities we could touch were ones that were identified in need through the BCS, Building Condition Survey. So the most recent one we had done was in 2015-16. We want to get back on that 5-year cycle next year, and that document will be a jumping off point to any future capital projects. So it's important that we do it, and it's costly, but it's an investment in facilities in terms of the
And we have to, by law.
Yeah, it's mandated.
It's mandated.
You don't get a waiver since we're doing the capital projects, we'll be changing some.
It's going to be a rolling 5-year plan.
They use that when they review your plans and specifications, they want to see that you're addressing some of those needs that were identified in the BCS. So like if you decide to put in some sort of big, arena or something like that, and they're like, okay, so what you're spending $20 million here, but you're not addressing all these other safety issues that you have here. And they're like, well, we want to put this in. It's like, unless you do those, you can't do that. So they use it as kind of like a checks and balance to make sure you're doing the right thing by the district and not just frivolously spending taxpayer dollars.
It's one of the better bureaucracies of the state ed department.
But didn't some of the things that went into our capital project actually come out of?
Correct.
Most of them,
Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Yep.
Well, the safety.
Yeah, so what will happen is if we approve this and we bring this team through, let's just say in 12 months,
Right.
that report will look different than our most recent one because
we have made improvements, whether they were out of our pocket or through the capital project. So the report always changes. It's always fluid because we're constantly making upgrades, whether it's through a bond or just through Anthony and his team's work.
Materials and supplies, looking for a slight increase in that as well. Oil, small increase, 1.2. Electric and gas, 2% increase. Water about the same. Telephone, slight increase. Gas propane the same. Maintenance projects, because we're going to be doing the capital bond, we're just flatlining that for now. Hopefully we take care of a lot of that out of the capital project, and then we'll look at it, reassessment of that in the future. Overall, $206,000 increase, or 4.69% increase. But you have to remember that out of that $206,000, $75,000 of it is ECS. So if you take that back out of it, I think the number is more like a 3% increase overall. Straightforward.
Anybody have questions?
Oh, we're doing well, we're doing well.
Well, thank you.
Because we're only halfway.
Okay, next we have Lisa Schuckman, who is pupil personnel.
I'm leaving the most important one to the end.
Oh, so you want me to sit down?
Look at this, huh?
Good evening. So we are ready to talk about next year already. It's kind of crazy that I feel like we just did this last year. So I'm going to start with out-of-district placement students. So we have a difference of about 4 students for next year, whether they are graduating or they are coming back to the district. We have anticipated 2 to 3 students coming back to the district, and we have a few that are graduating and leaving us and going on to bigger and better things. So this year we have about 20 students out. Majority of them are at BOCES. And next year we're looking that we will have 16 students going out. And again, this is an estimate. It depends on the students that may move in from now until June, the students that move in over the summer. So that's what we're estimating right now. I think when I started last year from 17 to 18, I think we had 28 to 32 students out. So they've either graduated or returned to district. The ABC program has helped tremendously as well. In-district students, again, these are just your grade bands, 18 to 19 and 19 to 20. We're estimating that there's only going to be students in K to 5, only 100 next year compared to the 118 this year. That has to do with class sizes, that has to do with what we know of CPSE right now. That does not mean that there aren't students at home or in a private daycare that are not getting any services from us or the county that we wouldn't know about. So that's an estimate right now based on the students I know. 6 to 8, we are going from 89 to 76. The class that's coming up is a little bit smaller, so we have less students with disabilities. 9 to 12 is growing a little because our 8th grade going up is a little bit bigger that we have compared to the 9th grade class we currently have there. So last year we had about 320, or this year we have about 326 students that are classified. Next year we're estimating 297. And that is based on right now, that's not based on the rest of the year CSEs, that students may declassify, students may go to 504 plans. It really just depends on what the annual reviews look like in our testing.
So would you say, is this mostly because our general school population size is shrinking? Are proportions about the same?
I'm finding that there's smaller classes. It's not by a lot, but even 20 students, if 1 in 3 are special ed, it's quite a bit. So I'm seeing that the classes are smaller. So our 8th grade going up is larger than our current 9th grade with classified students.
So it's not that we have fewer percentage of kids that are being classified?
No, we're still pretty high in percentages, higher than the state recommends. However, we're doing what's best for kids. And that's really, and I know there's that percentage they want us to be at, but we also have to make sure that we're getting kids the services. The budget that we have for next year, the first few lines from administrative salaries to secretary salaries is really stuff that is contractual. It's not a lot that we can control. So that's a big part of our budget. The other, we've tried to keep zero. We made, if you remember last year, you all approved our large jumps in taking money out of the grant, putting it in the budget so we get more aid back on it. So we were able to keep things flat. That's even with getting all of our flexible furniture, getting the iPads or anything assistive communication that students need. And that our teachers need as well. There's other things that they need for whether it's VBT, whether it's counseling, speech therapists might need an iPad. So we were able to accomplish that with the money. We don't need an increase in that budget. You see there's 10% in contractual. That's a lot with our mailings. All the stuff that has to go home for CSE stuff is obviously, there's an increase in tuition. Or an increase in mailing. Tuition to other private schools is the other area in which has gone up. That is a residential placement. So we currently have 1.2 students in there now that we have a student leaving. But again, that residential, we don't know if there's going to be summer school with that. So that's another piece that we have to really look at. How do we budget so we're not moving money? So whether it's a little bit more or a little bit less, we will still have money to cover that tuition. And that probably will include him doing summer, the student doing summer, which we didn't have last year. So we'll have to make sure we have it in the budget this year. Services from BOCES, whether it's related services or the services themselves, there's not a lot that we can change. It's the BOCE increase. And the last is transportation, as Liz had said in her last presentation. It's our Sailor 2 kids going more into the community, really getting some work-based learning, making sure they're hands-on, they're getting ready for post-21. So right now we're looking at a 5% increase. It's not going. There we go. So the initiatives we have going on currently, I just actually met with the ICT auditor. She will be doing a few days throughout the district, interviewing some of our staff, watching our staff throughout all buildings, K to 12, really looking at what is that we could do better, what do we have in place, or do we need to make any changes. So from there, we'll then identify some professional development we need to do, because we also talked about the consultant teacher model, which is a big step for some of our buildings, which will require a lot of professional development. Implementation and planning for the Sailor 2.0, and you have heard about that as well. Yeah. The increase of mental health staff, as we have talked, I've talked to you guys, I think this is my second year having a conversation, and I think we've had 6 or 7 talking about the need of mental health and how we need to look at more. So we do have a 0.6 at the high school, and we would like to make it a 1.0. We have a state.
Yeah, that's so important because, all the research that's come out about any, violence in schools, it all ties into identification and having staff in place to deal with children and being able to recognize. And I think we have wonderful people that can recognize, and now to say, social workers, greater staff to deal with children. It's very important.
And another increase, and we talked quite a bit about this at the financial meeting last night, is a counselor. The new state mandates are that K to 5 students, or elementary and where K to 5, have access to a school counselor. Whether they're preparing for college and career readiness, talking about careers, whether they are doing groups, whether they're doing some counseling, whether they're doing some push-in social emotional learning with groups. They could be working on some crisis management as well. So we will be taking a look at hiring one counselor and on a 6-day schedule, 3 days at one of the larger elementaries, 2 at one day, and 1 at the third day. So it's nice that you have a 6-day schedule. You can kind of split it as evenly as we could.
And that's a state mandate?
It's the new state mandate. So we will be going, so the school counselors and I have been 6 to 8, 6 to 12 have been working on our guidance plan. We will be going next week up to BOCES. They're having a countywide, everybody's coming together to kind of share how you're writing it, what does it look like. So we're going up, I have a team of 2 from the middle school and 2 from the high school, and we're going up and we'll be writing this plan. So it's a lot of work, but I think once we're a little bit further ahead than most people, because we started a while ago. As soon as the mandate came out, I was pushing it out to people. Our original plan before I came was about this thick. The new plan could be about 10 pages, and they have done a really nice job, the counselors. I'm not taking any credit, it's all the school counselors. They've taken a very nice job and really taken that on and said, okay, this is what our activities should look like. This is what the elementary should look like, the middle school, the high school. So they've done a very nice job to start. So we're a little bit ahead of most schools, which is exciting.
And there are quite a few elementary schools in the region that have always had school counselors.
Yes.
I had them as principal in an
I did
elementary
too.
building. So it sounds a little silly when you throw the college and career readiness in, but they
Yes.
do a lot
No, but I
beyond that.
I think the question was that because there are other things, there's psychologists and there's social workers, and you wonder about redundancies.
Yeah, I hear you.
And there probably is. Or at the
Definitely.
very least, what they're gonna do is start having, very linear, you do this, and
Exactly.
and yes, but there's an argument that maybe I'm glad that we're going to be using one person over 3 schools, because otherwise it seems like it could be a lot of waste.
Right.
So this had been bounced around for many, many years, and school districts took the stance of petitioning the state to say, if we already have some sort of counseling model or support mechanism, social workers, psychologists, we should be grandfathered in. And the state took feedback because they do have some basic feedback cycles before they mandate things, and essentially said the skills and credentials and the certification of a school counselor has more breadth and depth than a social worker, and the skills and credentials of a school psychologist are very specific to educational testing and diagnostic testing. That's how they fell on the mandate.
You would say fine if there weren't all of those people already, but
Sure.
between a social worker, a psychologist, all these different functions, those functions that you're looking to have the counselor handle are all covered, not necessarily in one person, but by those other individuals.
And I think the
100%.
one
I
positive,
appreciate that it's,
I think the one positive that comes out of all of this is that we were leaving some of the elementaries uncovered because that social worker is shared amongst buildings. The psychologist might be shared amongst buildings, so the 3 elementaries now will always have a coverage. So for example, at Furnace Woods, Tuesday mornings, the psychologist goes and helps the middle school with VBT. So now there will be coverage, and we'll arrange so there's never, not having any mental health at the building, which is huge. There's not many schools that can say that they have coverage at every building at all times. And you know as well as I know, there's many crises quite frequently. Some of them are minor and some of them are larger, so we just take that as it happens, yes.
Lisa, I think the discussion that I'm hearing is what is going to be the job difference in a school counselor as opposed to the social worker. I know what the psychologists do, but I am not so sure what the school counselor's job is actually going to entail.
Actually, it's interesting that you say you know what a school psychologist does, because I don't believe our school psychologists all do what a school psychologist could do, because they've been by themselves for so many years. So they've been taking on the role of the social worker and the psychologist, and sometimes you're asking them to do 10 things, and they're like, wait, but I gotta test my kid. So I think we will establish roles and responsibilities, and that'll be part of this guidance plan, but it's also going to be part of the planning on how do we utilize them throughout the school. So if we take that psychologist and we say, guess what, psychologist A, we're gonna have you now start running CPSE meetings as well as CSE meetings in your building, which most school districts, your psychologists do run those meetings, the annual reviews, the 504 meetings, not the initials, not the or the reevals, but they would do those other meetings, which then alleviates a little bit more. Then the social worker takes on the counseling, and then the school counselor takes on the lunch bunch groups and maybe pushing into classrooms for SEL, so it really depends. But we will have that all aligned once we finish our counseling plan.
All right, so maybe in the future, the board can have a presentation.
We can probably do it in the first thing in the fall next year.
That would be wonderful.
So this means we're hiring 3 more people?
or we're not,
No.
or
No,
one.
We're not
One
sure
full.
yet. So, we're looking at, as we'll get into the personnel part of our budget later in the season, we're looking at existing staff. What we know is that we need to have a certified credentialed school counselor available at the elementary schools. So we look at our existing school counselors. We have 7 of them. They're by grade level at the middle school, and we have 5 of them at the high school. Well, we know that we have some decreasing enrollment. We have some enrollment gaps coming through. Do we take a high school counselor or a secondary counselor and assign them to the elementary, so that it's not a staff increase, it's a reallocation of staff? Those are conversations we'll have to continue to have through the spring. It might be a different model.
Or if you have somebody,
and again, I'm not looking at, I don't know if the list, specifics, but if you've got a social worker, would you not replace the social worker and then just hire the counselor?
We could, based on what the needs of that either retiring or resigning social worker was.
And I think,
Shift them around throughout the district.
right, and that's what we talked about last night, was really saying, we have to put everything in the kitchen sink right now. That does not mean we're gonna need all the personnel. That doesn't mean that I can't say, oh, these 3 can do this, these 2 can do this, and oh, guess what, Joe, I don't need anything. So that's really us looking, but right now we have to plan, and I know it's so early in the year to plan, but that's something we definitely have to
So
do.
this is like your not to exceed number or your.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'll take us.
Not that we might not need to exceed it.
I'll take us back to a financial conversation we had a couple of years ago. We had the high school team presenting on social emotional learning and some other things, and they said, you know what we really need? We need more support in that arena in terms of social workers and psychologists, because we have kids who are under the radar or on paper through their transcript, their lack of behavior referrals or attendance are not on our radar, but they need help, and we call that building level service. And we as a board said, okay, we're going to increase the number of those related service staff in the district to work with those kids that haven't presented themselves yet. Well, what we understand is when we go and try to find a social worker or a psychologist, you actually get more bang for your buck with a psychologist because they're more credentialed. They can do more for your related service program. They can do educational testing. They can participate more actively and specifically in CSE meetings. So we do have a sundry of people who perform these tasks that are a little bit of, on this side of the ledger and a little bit on that side. So what what an elementary counselor will do is sort of get everyone back to their core competency. We may not need all of them, or as Mary Pat said, we may be able to trade one position for another if we have a vacancy, but we know that the mandate is there.
Thank you.
Okay, our revenues, I really estimated our IDA grants for 619 and 611, because we don't get these numbers and probably until, I think it's the end of June, I get a notice that my grant is due July 10th, and that's when they give me the total. So really, I've noticed we've gone up maybe $1,500 each year. So I just went up the $700, $800 and said, we'll just call it even for right now, and that's about the number we're gonna get for our 611, 619. 619 is specifically used it pays for part of the secretary, and the rest has to go to programs for the CPSE kids. 611, that's a large amount we use for salaries. We decided not to put supplies and stuff in there because we weren't getting any reimbursement for them. We pulled the supplies last year. That's typically salaries, with the exception of some things that I may need to pay for, whether it's prom training, whether it's Wilson training. I run that through there because we'll get some funding there, and they're expensive to have.
Very.
The stack, when I talked to Alyssa and Kathy up at they do all of our stacking for us. They gave me that estimate.
Spell that out for everyone.
Stack.
Stack is the reimbursable funds we get for our high-cost students. So students that are out of district that have that, we get a percentage of their tuition is reimbursed to us, but we also have to pay the county some. So it goes back and forth, but we end up making money off from it. We do get that money reimbursed, not making, but we get money back.
Similar to how BOCES operates, but this is directly from the state.
So last year, we were fortunate enough to do a whole bunch of back stuff that hadn't been done for a few years, and we got about $750,000. We may have gotten more. We're still questioning a couple of things. This year, right now, it's only about $116,000, but that is not all of it. That's all they could give me at that point. They do it in different stages. So this is just our out-of-district kids right now in public and private schools. This does not include any of our in-district high-cost kids. So most of our kids in ABC are high-cost kids. Any kids that have a one-to-one aid or a shared aid are also high-cost kids. So we do get some money back for that. I can't even begin to tell you what 1920 would be. So there's no way I can even put a number on that. Tuition for ABC right now is about $689,000. Next year I'm estimating about $710,000, depending on the students. And once we start advertising for our second sailor program, we might get a few more. So you can't really judge that until we start advertising. And what I do is I advertise on a district website, a cert listserv for all the county directors see. It goes to BOCES. BOCES has also actually started posting our own district programs because our own districts are asking what do other districts have. So I've sent that to all of our local districts. That's how we've gotten some ICT and small class tuition students. So this year, we just took in our third small class student. So we have one at BV from one of the school districts and two at the middle school in our special class. So with related services and everything, and that number is lower because it didn't include the third student that we literally just took in, and we actually did another placement meeting for a fourth student yesterday. Whether he comes or not, I'm not sure. So that's that number without all the related services and all the billing. Any questions on that? So that's how our grant is basically broke down for this year. Again, next year will look very similar to that. Purchase services really has to go with all the training we do. BOCE services is our prompt training. We're only sending one person to do the second level of prompt to make sure at least one person gets that next level. If we find that we're finding more and more students with apraxia and the need for prompt, we will then start training others. And I said 619, again, that grant is very small. It really does support staff salaries and then the services that come through the CPSE.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you for being very proactive, because a lot of things that I think you're doing and you've implemented are kind of hopefully going to help, have less problems in our district. So
I think we will. I think we're on the right start. Thank you.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
Good evening, everyone. This is the exciting part where we can discuss your salaries. So,
Our salaries?
Yeah, you'll see.
We're operating at a deficit.
Yeah. So, as always, first of all, I want to thank our high school students, art students, because it takes me a while to be able to pick only 4 or 5 pieces of art because they are incredible. I really mean they are incredible. But the topics for today are very exciting. First, we're going to talk about tax stabilization. Then I'll give you a budget update, and then we'll talk about the administrative budget. Tax stabilization is exciting because
It's exciting.
Because it's only for us. It was approved only for our school district, and that's because the reason is because of the closure of Indian Point in the next couple of years. So what we ask the state is to allow us to put money into a reserve so we don't have big spikes in some years that we would have to increase taxes substantially, some years we don't. Like that, we'll have a reserve that will put money there starting if it passes this year, and then as we lose money from Indian Point, we can replace it from this money. The creation of this reserve has to be approved by the majority of the voters. That means that in May, we're going to have a proposition to approve the tax stabilization reserve for a certain amount. However, the amount that we are going to decide doesn't mean that we have to fund or that it's going to be funded by the community. Today we have $7 million that as soon as it passes, we'll move it there. And then we might get some money from the state, the federal government for the closure of Indian Point that will go into that reserve. So when we start losing the pilot payments, we can use that reserve, the money in that reserve to make up the difference so the taxes won't increase that much in one year compared to the other one. The important part of this is that in the resolution that was passed by the legislator, the legislator asked us to put a maximum amount that we can put in that reserve. It doesn't mean that we have to put that amount, but there has to be a number in the ballot that says that there's going to be a maximum amount that can be in that reserve. And there's been several discussions with the board, and I think it's an appropriate time for the board to discuss what that amount should be. And probably the board should give ideas on what the amount is. We still don't have all the information to make a final decision because we don't know, and we've been asking if we deplete the money, we can put more money. Or if it's only, if we say $20 million after we use the $20 million it's over, or if 1 year we spend $4 million, but suddenly the government sends us 17 million, I can get those 17 million or not, since I already spent 4 million and I would never exceed the 20 million. So we still have some answer, we still need some answers before we get to the final decision. However, I think it's important that the community and the board start discussing what the amount should be.
And I think until we get a little more information from the state, I don't think that the board really wishes to commit to a specific amount.
Is there a time frame for getting that information?
Well, we have to have our budget locked up and, well, the board approves it, it has to be locked up in early April in terms of tax cap and those sort of things. So we still have time. What we don't know is if this resolution to put on the, to pull on the ballot has to abide by those timelines or different timelines. You know, the most immediate act that the board takes related to the budget is to lock in the property tax cap. It's essentially a not to exceed number. And then we make our budget work within that. And then we approve the budget to go before voters in early May. So we're not sure. This is new. This is new to public school districts. What, you know, this came out of the governor saying, I'm closing Indian Point, I'm sorry, but I'm letting you open a reserve. And that was just a very ceremonious gesture to say, you're going to have a savings account that will mitigate tax spikes. With no money in it, with no gift card, but it can only be used to mitigate tax spikes. We can't use it to buy school buses, to pay for new sidewalks or basketballs. So it's important for us to have and to establish, but it's a little more ceremonious than it is anything tangible right now. But we have many, many more questions to ask, and this is not controlled by the state education department. This is not a state education department approved reserve. That's why the governor had to enact it into law. So what we do know is that it will be on the ballot. We'll educate everyone as to why it's there and what its purpose is. And as we learn more from the state in terms of how we fund it, if we put a do not exceed at 20 million, can we replenish it up to 20 million, or would we have to close that account and open a new account? You know, the more we ponder and try to get ready for this, the more questions we have than answers. So.
And I guess the major downside to having like a larger account, say we're not going to get these answers most likely before April 1st. So say we decide maybe we should put the number at 40 million in case we're not able to replenish, and we do get money from the state. From what I'm understanding, probably the biggest downside to that is going to be public perception
that it's not a $40 million tax.
I understand that the $40 million might be a maximum that we can put in the account, but chances are we're not going to need to go there. We're not going to be able to go there. And they're going to vote it down.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of explaining to do on something that sounds real simple, but when you get into the weeds, there will be a lot of questions.
There's going to be questions also about how it's used, when it's used.
Sure.
How it's, whether it's replenished or renewable, et cetera. So.
Yep.
And I think people, to go to that point, that it's not an additional tax, people aren't going to understand that school districts aren't allowed to put the savings account away for a rainy day, which is kind of what we're trying to do, because we're only allowed to put up to, I believe it's 4%, Enrique, of our annual budget to keep it as a reserve, as a, for spikes, for unexpected things. So that's why we needed the special legislation to allow us to create a savings account. So, you know, a lot of people are going to just think, well, why can't you just put it in a savings account and leave it there? But we're not allowed to under current law.
Yeah, and that's one of, you know, that's a checks and balance and accountability measure that would impact us negatively. And that's why the reserve was established, but it's almost a misnomer. It's a reserve with no money. You know, we can all go open a checking or savings account, but because we open an account doesn't mean we have startup money. And that's the difference here. So more to come, but we're relying on the executive branch of New York State government to help us with this. And you know, sometimes things sound really good when you vote on them, and then you don't know how to implement. And I think we're close to that sort of analogy. So we'll keep pounding them for answers and make the best informed decision we can.
I think the key is communication.
Yep.
I mean, even just as it's evolving, and yes, there are questions that, you know, that still remain, but what the purpose is, and that it's not it's not like money that, you know, additional money, it's not like additional money that's going to be, you know, taken from, you know, not taken, but expected of people, but it's rather just a place to put any sort of savings or additional monies received, and just to have them.
Okay. Some budget updates. I'm increasing our fund balance by $155,000, so our revenues will increase by that amount. New York State, our revenues are lower by $500,000. I overestimated at the beginning. It was just an estimate, but they came $500,000 less than what I estimate. And our tax cap is increasing $166,000. So compared to January 9th, our preliminary budget that was between 80 and 80.4, it's now a little bit below 80 million compared to 79.5 last year. So it's only an increase of $451,000 or 0.57%. Our preliminary tax levy is $43.5 million compared to $42.6, which is an increase of 2.23%. So now we're going to talk about the administrative budget, which is the smallest part of our budget. By law, I have to show the budget in three parts: program, administrative, and capital. Administrative is 6.3% of our total budget, and that's divided first in general support. And general support is basically the money that we allocate to the board and to the district clerk so they can do their business. We send board members to train to be better board members. We pay the district clerk a stipend to be the district clerk, to be here every board meeting and to do the work. He's like also the secretary of the board. So anytime the board needs anything, the district clerk is responsible for helping.
And I just want to underscore that the training is not necessarily, well, first, the training is not by choice. Every board member that gets elected after they get sworn in has a series of trainings that they have to attend, workshops they have to go to in various facets of education law and the responsibilities of being a board member and the legal responsibilities and personal liabilities that board members have. So it's not a
I want to go to a conference in San Diego, can I go? These are mandated expenses specific to New York. Yeah, in Albany.
You go to White Plains.
Go to White Plains or Albany.
Yeah. So here the total increase of this part of the budget is $158, which is way less than 1%. The next one is central administration, and central administration is divided in 5. First, the office of the superintendent. This includes the superintendent's salary, the secretary of the superintendent's salary, supplies, equipment, anything that they need for the superintendent to do his work, and that's an increase of 1.8%. The second one is business administration, and basically business administration is my department, and it includes my salary, the salary of all my people, Diane, Debbie Marriott, Felice, Mark. And then we also have a part-time student. We like to have this program with students. The students come, work, they understand what work is, we pay them, and really help us tremendously. Compared to last year, we're moving from 5.5 to 4.5 people because David DeCiccio last year was part of this account code, but David DeCiccio has become our district treasurer, so we're going to see it in a different account code. So because of her movement out of here, our account code will decrease $32,000 or 4.6%. The next one is school resource officer. That's our county officer that now works with us. The community wanted an armed policeman that can help us with security. Last year we hired him after, and we decided to hire him after we closed the budget. So last year we didn't have money in the budget for him. We had to take the money from somewhere else. This year we have it. So that's an increase of $157,000. And then finally, what's the treasurer, our auditors, our tax, our internal auditors, external auditors, and that's an increase of $67,000 because that's an increase from Debbie moving from my place to this place. Central services, we have legal costs that will be the same. Then we have the personnel department, that's Laura. There are 2 people in that department, Laura and Fran, their secretary. Laura has a lower salary than what Matthew used to have, so that's why we have a decrease. Then we have public relations, and that's to run our public relations services. That's an increase of $3,000. Then we have the student accident insurance. This year is not increasing for the first time in many years. And then we have the BOCES administrative fees that are decreasing a little bit. Finally, the major part of this is curriculum development and supervision. First we have Margaret and her secretary and all her needs, including PD, BOCES, absolutely everything that is needed for her to run her department. Then Joe always gets strategic planning money, so we decided that
we're going to do less.
He's going to do less with it, a lot less. So we're decreasing it by 80%. Then we have curriculum development, that's money for money for Margaret to use for PD and another work. And then the school building administration, that's all the principals, their secretaries, their equipment, repairs, everything of all the administrative buildings without taking into account special ed, because special ed, even though some of the salaries go there, we wanted to show them in special ed so we can know exactly how much we spend in special ed. So total is an increase of 5.3% or $252,000. Or if you take into account that 157,000 was the new contractual for the SRO, it's really less than $100,000 of increase. So
I have a question. I'm in full support of our SRO, desperately need one, absolutely. Why do they cost so much?
Let me tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because,
First year, like why?
No, Lakeland and other school districts have been using them. So when they sent us the agreement, it was take it or leave it, because I'm not going to do anything different from Henry Hudson to any other. We pay 100% of his salary with benefits. So maybe we all want to change jobs and become school for social.
The guy's got to take a bullet for our kids. I'm absolutely fine with that.
No. Nobody's saying. No.
I don't think
And it's not only the
That's-
bullet.
With comp and ben fully loaded, 157 for someone who's going to take a bullet for our kids. That's absolutely. He doesn't get all 157. I mean,
Well, that's
it goes
what-
towards him as
that's Lori's
benefits
question.
and
Yeah. Well, usually
pension,
benefits-
but it's not his salary.
It's
that
a
he gets.
contractual, so
But
they,
that's
so
Lori's
they
No.
like,
Again,
It's not all take home.
he's like one of our teachers. You pay salary, you pay employee retirement system, you pay social security, and you pay health care.
So that's his total thing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, and
I'm just asking.
And vehicle.
That, she just
You're
had,
making the
you know,
vehicles in there,
No,
too.
the question-
and
that was the
vehicle,
whole
I'm sorry,
question.
you're right, his vehicle.
So it's the whole package.
Okay.
No, and I don't think anybody is objecting to it.
Not
I
at all.
just think that
Yes,
there was a question
when you look at it
presented.
and you say, oh my God,
Right.
157,000, but
Because I don't always think when and I think Lori's right, when the public sees these numbers, they don't understand either that it's not just salary, but it's benefits. So when we put things out as, you know, a package, that's what it is. It's including
He's
everything.
full-time job of Eddie is being here. That's his
Right.
full-time
Right.
job like a teacher, you know. Instead of being a teacher, he's a police officer with the same credentials, same BA, education and everything.
I was actually surprised it was so low, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, because when it's fully loaded.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a little surprised.
And again,
He's not here probably, so he's not.
And again, this was a take it or leave it. It was nothing to negotiate.
There's no one else to
Can't be
negotiate.
present.
Is he available to work the rest of the year? Something
I
else?
don't know what kind of agreements we're making.
Is he a full FTE?
A full FTE like a teacher, yes,
Well,
not
that's what
12 months.
No, but he's a full FTE.
Oh, yes.
No, but he's
It's a
asking,
full,
it's-
his job, 100% of his job is being here.
But
He
I think-
doesn't go after here to, you know,
No,
to
but he's asking-
patrol or anything.
but the
No,
summer.
but if we have summer school.
summer.
For
No.
instance-
It's
Okay.
for, not more. It's very clear. I think August, when the kids start, late August to June 30.
So it's
Okay, so it's like nine months?
Like a teacher.
It's 180
Okay,
days.
so then
So
it actually sounds about right. Then it doesn't sound low anymore.
Enrique, the question is being asked, what do we do then in the summertime when we have summer school programs? And
We have John and his team. Even though John and his team are also 10-month employees,
do you stay then, John?
John stayed last year. John
Last year
was
stayed because
here.
of the different things were going on in the district, and probably, I'm assuming this year because of what we're doing in the district with building around the ground, so I'm guessing that's.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a presence.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I think if we're talking about increasing our safety, I think it's got to be.
Oh,
12
definitely.
months.
Definitely.
That's good to know.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are up to school calendar.
So, I'll let Margaret get into some of the specifics, but this is school calendar time. Usually the month of February is when districts come together. We all meet as a group of 18 regional school districts and BOCES. We try to model our calendars as closely as possible with BOCES and our neighboring school districts, but different school districts have different contractual requirements. And one of our contractual requirements is that there needs to be at least 3 full weeks off between the Christmas holiday and April. And so many districts are moving away from a full week off in February. They're doing long weekends and moving those days to different parts of the year. They're moving them to around Columbus Day, or they're moving them around Memorial Day. So this is where we are. This is as close as we could get with our region colleagues, but as you notice, because of where Christmas Day falls, as well as New Year's Day, federal holidays, next year would be a 2-week vacation. We would have the traditional week in February, the week in April. We're proposing that teachers report to work in late August. We've had really good success with 2 full days of staff development, the Wednesday and Thursday directly before Labor Day. And so on Tuesday, September 3rd, that's actually the first day of kids. So we would continue that transition. You see in October some of the Jewish holidays that we observe, and the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. We also put in there the give back days. So if we exceed our snow day allotment, how we make up the state mandated instructional time based on taking days away from planned holidays. So once we approve this, everyone has an understanding of what the expectations are for the next 16 months. So it's in line with, to the extent practicable with our neighbors. We send many kids to BOCES programs, so we try to be in session when BOCES is and vice versa. We have shared transportation agreements with many of our local districts, so again, we try to be in session when they're in session, and it's usually easier when everyone's close to doing the same thing than doing their own. So we can approve this tonight, so we can publish it and let parents know, but we're really locked in. We're locked in based on the region's exam schedule in June. We're locked in based on the 3 through 8 math and ELA testing schedule. And what we don't publish on this calendar, but what we're very cognizant of, is when we have AP exams. We have scores of kids taking AP exams, so we try to protect the end of April as much as we can, because traditionally AP exams take place early. So it looks like a checkerboard, or some sort of puzzle, but we try to put as much on this as we can and try to get it out as early as possible. Margaret leads a committee in the district to go through this to make sure we meet all contractual requirements, and this is one that does that. So if
if we're okay, we could just have a resolution to approve it, and we can let parents know tomorrow.
I was just wondering, I noticed that it looks like we don't have the Friday before Memorial Day anymore. That was taken away.
We get the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's
Yeah, we
like-
do. Okay,
And you get
good.
2 weeks of Christmas.
That is how we got the 2 weeks of Christmas.
Christmas.
We took
We
away
waited
the
that
Friday.
day.
Right.
And sometimes we end up with longer weekends throughout the year, depending on which day of the week some of the federal holidays fall, as well as which day of the week some of the Jewish holidays fall.
Okay.
Take a
Then do we
motion.
need a resolution?
Just a motion.
Okay. Can I please have a motion then to approve the school calendar?
So moved.
All in favor?
I-
Thank you. Approved. Now it can be public. Okay, moving ahead, we have second reading of our policy on meal charging. Carol. Lori.
Okay, the goal,
Lori.
ready? The goal of the
Wait for no
undercover.
reading.
Okay.
Did you start?
I did,
I
and
missed it.
Looked away for
and he
you.
waved at me.
Quick, are you quick?
I am.
I'm telling you, okay. All right, Carol, then. Are we done then? Any questions?
Well, this was the second reading, and Joe pretty much explained it last time.
Yeah, I can do it
Okay,
again.
go
So,
Unless you
this is the state recommended policy for schools that participate in the national and state school lunch program. Our elementary and middle schools participate in this program, and these are mandatory guidelines based on how the district can operate that program K through 8. Of note, the high school does not participate in the school lunch program. That was a discussion we had about 4 or 5 years ago, because the federal school lunch guidelines at the high school actually limit student choice, limit their meal size, limit the opportunity of what they can charge and not charge. And so we decided to not participate in the high school lunch program, to actually give kids more choice and give them an opportunity for a better meal. So this is the K-8 piece. The high school piece will remain intact. And it's a mandated policy, so it's one of those fun things the school board gets to say, well, thanks so much. State and feds will put it on the books.
Okay.
Should we change this to K-8 meal policy? I know it says it in the body, but when people, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, then if that's the case, you have to
But this
have
is the
something.
state, actually, this is the.
I
the
know,
name
so
of
why
the
can't we
state.
call it the K-8 meal
Next
charge
question's
policy?
gonna be, what's the meal charge for like 9 to 12? So
We don't participate in one, that's why there isn't one.
But there, you'll have to create a
But there
policy
is
that
a
articulates
charge.
that.
You know what I mean, we don't participate in them.
Not in this, but you'll have to create.
I mean,
a different one.
I know it says it in it, elementary, middle school, but, okay, never mind.
So this is meant to exclude the high school policy?
Yes.
That's one purpose of this policy?
Yes.
Yes,
Right,
and
so
that
that's
was-
why it's not
And that was
titled
a,
K-8.
yep, and I want to make very clear, that was a decision we made based on input from our food service staff, because we offer a better program, not participating in the school, in the federal school lunch program.
Do we need to be explicit that it doesn't include the high school?
It does,
Because it says
in a couple
elementary,
different
middle school.
places, especially at the end of the policy, it says the high school does not participate in this.
But it does ask you. to
That's the
put
last
what
sentence of
you
this.
graduate.
Yeah.
Like
Go-
how
can you go to the last
work,
sentence of this?
So you have to get rid of the funds, so it sort of covers everybody, the entire district.
Thank you.
She sticks her heel in it.
Right.
Last sentence.
Yeah.
Undercuts in high school is not part of this.
No, but it also talks about how you're gonna get rid of the money at the end of the year. Like if your kid is graduating or something, students' parents, and it talks about, you know, like unclaimed funds and stuff. So it does articulate.
No, we're just talking about the national lunch
But
program,
the-
where a
the
6'4" kid can buy more than one piece of pizza.
Yeah.
I
Which is what
know.
you can now do, but, no, but that's the point. So it does talk about that, and it talks about like refunding the money at the end. So it does cover the high school level as well.
Okay, Then can I have a motion to accept the policy as stated?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have second reading of conflict of interest policy. Carol again.
Should we go from
Or Lori?
Lori?
Move to waive reading.
Are we starting?
Can we start, yeah.
To start, okay. The Board of Education is committed to avoiding any situation in
Okay,
which they
move for
create.
third reading.
So this policy is not a mandated policy, but NISBA recommends one. There are policies, particularly 2160, around school officers and the limitations around school officers and conflicts of interest. The committee felt that as we get into the nuts and bolts of our capital project, for example, we're going to be hiring a lot of contractors, we're going to be hiring a lot of consultants, we're going to be hiring a lot of people that will be doing a lot of work in a short period of time, and having this policy as a belt and suspenders approach and used as a guideline to make sure there are no conflicts of interest, no opportunities of nepotism and the like. So this is a verbatim policy written by our School Boards Association.
Excuse me, can I ask who moved to waive the reading? I didn't get it.
Oh, I did.
You did? Okay, thank you.
It's his new job.
I'm good at
It's our new job.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Then could I please have a motion to accept the conflict of interest policy?
So moved.
Second? Bill? And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I don't know if we've had any committee reports. Does anybody?
Well, the finance, but that was
Of
the
course.
whole, that was the whole presentation.
Past couple hours.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, the finance, I mean, you should bring that up. A lot of people don't realize all 4 presentations this evening were reviewed previously by the Finance Committee. And
They know, it was
Finance-
budget reports.
And the
But
Finance
what
Committee
people
gave
don't even
input
realize
to,
how
you know,
much they mean.
One, it was a practice run for the people giving the presentations, and we gave our input and gave our questions so they can anticipate questions and adjust the presentations as needed. So that's what the Finance Committee did at our last meeting.
Thank you, Bill. Okay.
I only went to one meeting this past time, so.
We don't believe it, no.
The safety committee met, and there's, they have update on the school bond project status. Alterra's has been doing some more safety training. We heard about some of that with bus drivers. And then also, they've been working on numbering the outside doors of the school buildings so that they can be easily identified by people when they, when emergency workers come up or police officers need to get in the building. They can go to door number 2 or door number 4 because it's been identified as to the place where the emergency is. And then also clearly labeling the doors inside the building as well, the classrooms inside the doors. That's the next project that's happening. And also they're looking at running a what-if scenarios this summer with Alterra's. Like, what if there's this particular situation that happens? And it kind of, it forces you to think through, what would you do if this actually happened in my building? It sounds really good to me. Tomorrow night, I'm going to a legislative advocacy forum with our representatives, and that's happening tomorrow. So that's really about it. The only other thing, it's not really a committee I'm on, but just for us to be aware of, there was a red flag bill signed by Governor Cuomo on Monday. I don't know if you know about that or not, but yeah, it prohibits a person for up to a year from purchasing or possessing a firearm, and schools can refer people to that process. So it's important to know about. Teachers and family members, as well as people who come in contact with kids. If they're concerned about it, they can.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else? Okay, next we're up to Audience comments on agenda items? Anybody? Okay, thank you. New business, I don't think anybody has any. And now we're up to, can I please have a motion for adjournment?
Me.
I know you all cry.
Me.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.